You put a Queensland jersey on Dane Gagai and he finds a way to score a try.
Cam Munster, he's going to be the one to watch.
The hammer! He deserves a try!
Even though he's only young, he's such a big name, he's such a promising star.
Well, we've seen plenty of this in Origin. This is one of the best. Matani will score.
And Queensland celebrates. He smashed.
That's a brilliant rugby league try.
Chip chasing there, no, something different, mix it up.
Pride is a wonderful thing for a footballer.
It's Queenslander time here again on the wide world of sports today, joined by Sam Thaiday and Wally Lewis. Boys, a lot of talk at the moment here in Queensland and across all of the National Rugby League expansion, maybe an extra team in Brisbane, a 17 side. Do you agree with it?
Oh, look, I think it's going to take place. Whether people agree with it or not, the NRL, their views and opinions will certainly be the thing that makes the decision there. The game's probably only going to get bigger, but I don't think it will climb too much more. Yes, I've got to say I do, and if we're asked to point out, where that should be, I guess it's, there's only a couple of areas. I would say that Redcliffe can't be ignored. Magnificent setup from last weekend, would have impressed plenty of people. Ipswich certainly have to take into consideration as well the talent that they've had from that area and the way that they continue to promote rugby league in the best way possible. And I think Rockhampton certainly can't be ignored either as three of the major areas for Queensland. I'm sure New South Wales are going to come up with a couple of suggestions as well.
Yeah, what do you think, Sammy?
I thought the only thing expanding in Brisbane was my trousers, but this has been talked about. It's been... They've said it's going to happen. They said it's not going to happen with the way the game's going at the moment. But I'm really excited to see what happens and where it goes. I still think Redcliffe is the front runner at the moment. I would love to see this announced sooner rather than later, so whatever team it is can get a recruitment agent on board straight away and get them throughout Queensland searching for players, throughout New South Wales searching for players, because I think if we can snap up some of that younger talent already and then start signing some marquee players around it, I'm sure that whoever ends up coaching that, someone's thrown their hat in the ring already, that team, I'm sure that, they can start building something and, who knows what's going to happen from that point in time.
Yeah, and the bloke you're alluding to there is Wayne Bennett. He's been quite vocal in supporting expansion. The big knock is there's not enough players for a 17th side. Wayne Bennett says he could confidently build a team within the space of 18 months and make them competitive. Is there enough players?
Oh, look, I think there is enough players, Adam. We're going to be drawing them from the Q Cup, bringing them in. Lots of young talent, of course, that'll be coming along. I think there certainly will be enough players. They'll have to be shared around a little bit, and I think we'll see probably the rules on players' contracts stiffen up a little bit on and what they're allowed to do and what the denials are, how long they can expect to be in conversation with the club to guarantee. It really does need to be nutted out, and I can see that there's going to be a fair bit of argument take place in the build-up to this. It certainly is a lot easier said than done.
And the big knock is that how does a new Brisbane team carve into the Broncos fan base? How do you build a fan base around that? But a lot of people in New South Wales don't realise that half the people in Brisbane really like the Broncos. The other half of Brisbane don't like the Broncos.
Exactly. And that's the biggest thing. So I'm sure that, the new franchise, wherever it is and whatever it is, will be able to attract a lot of people that, are not necessarily Broncos players. I keep on going back to Redcliffe because they've got the stadium there. I think it's a perfect size stadium for a new team coming into a massive competition. They'll be able to push tickets and push membership really well in that area as well. They're financially stable. So, there will be enough fans there that will support a team that's not the Brisbane Broncos. We would love to say everyone in Brisbane is a Broncos fan, but they're not.
And that Moreton Bay region where Redcliffe is, we saw the great pictures of Wide World of Sports on the weekend. Moreton Bay Regional Council and Sunshine Coast Council are two of the fastest growing areas in terms of population. So there is the population there and the future population to support it. But what about if the licence is granted tomorrow, you're running the club, franchise player, who do you look to sign straight away to build a club around?
I'll put my hand up there and say the bloke that I talk about every time I'm on this show, Harry Grant. He's a wonderful player. I keep bringing up the story. I watched this kid play for 7 minutes, and I remember in his first grade debut, and I said that kid will play for Queensland, probably play for Australia. He had time, he had space. His decision-making process was first class. He had the ability to be able to dictate terms to the opposition really clearly, and the way that he was able to run with the ball and create doubt in the mind of the defender was something that was quite extraordinary. And he's a guy that I'm sure that would make a good background.
Plus, he's a Queensland Origin player as well. He's a Queensland who's played Origin, so he's familiar. What about you, Sammy? Who do you go with?
Well, you can sign Harry Grant, but you can sign Callum Ponga as well.
Oh, that's very good.
And you talk about a marquee player and you want to attract people to your club. He's one of those kids that is absolutely growing in confidence year by year. He has a cult following already, so you're going to get that kid market. You're going to be getting kids and families through the gate to watch a player like Callum Ponga. And I think he's the guy you chase and you throw the kitchen sink at him. If it's in the Moreton Bay region, give him Moreton Island. He can have it. He can do whatever he wants there.
And just moving on now to the Broncos' heartbreak for them against the Roosters at Suncorp Stadium. Boys, that last play of the game, was it a penalty? Flegler's high shot? Should it have been a penalty?
I think if we don't go back to the challenge, I think it gets let go. But, by the letter of the law and the way they're cracking things down this year, it's a penalty. The incident before that, Victor Radley on Albert Kelly, you slow it down as much as you want, it's still a penalty. So, as heartbreaking as it was, I was there, I was watching it, I was on the roller coaster ride with everyone else. But, there's a lot of positives that I took out of that game as well.
Oh, look, we're again, to use that term, searching for perfection in the game. Yeah. We don't want to see, situations take place where, or come into play where it's an illegal tackle that's getting promoted as acceptable in the game. If we make a rule on what's legal and what's not, we've got to be very harsh upon its execution and make sure that that goes to play. Unfortunately, it wasn't what we want to see. It wasn't the best way to promote the game of rugby league, so we had to rule against it when I think everybody agreed that it was that far off being, a correct tackle. So it was just a sad way.
And it's a shame Tom Flegler gets remembered for that because he was outstanding in that game. What about that left foot step to set up Albert Kelly's try? Like, did you ever have any runs like that, Sammy? Too good for a front rower.
Never.
Neither of us did, Sam. Let's tell the truth there. We couldn't do a sidestep, even at training, even if there were school kids opposing us. No.
But to me, that was the highlight of that game.
Yeah, it was eyes up footy, and that's what you want to see some of these players playing. And we want to see him play eyes up footy, and he saw a chance of opportunity. Usually, a front rower would have tried to find a halfback to kick it because it was fifth and last, but he saw the hole and he attacked it, left foot step. Might have even been a goose step there, who knows? But great offload, Albert Kelly, doing what all halfbacks should do, pushing through and pushing up on the ball, and scored himself a try, and it just it brought life back into the Brisbane Broncos at that point in time.
Oh, it brought everybody that watched it to their feet. That was a wonderful attacking play.
Yeah. It was kind of the reverse of what should happen on a fifth tackle option because Corey Oates gets the ball, winger on fifth tackle, doesn't know what to do. Passes to a front row who doesn't know what to do, steps a few people, passes to the halfback who knows what to do. He scores the try in the last play. But Tom Flegler's come out and said he is on the improve, but he said he feels as though he's let down the side the start of the year, especially Payne Haas. How important is it that Broncos build solid middles around Haas and not exhaust him, not burn him out? Because he is doing a lot for this team at the moment.
We've almost got a problem there in the front row going forward next year. You've got Tom Flegler's got to fit in there. You've got Payne Haas. You've got
Carrigan comes back.
Paddy Carrigan. You've got another middle in Hetherington who's been playing a bit of lock. So it's a great problem to have, but we do need to make sure that a player like Payne Haas, who was absolutely brilliant in that game, some of the things he did, the tackle on Tedesco was absolutely brilliant. He almost scored in the one set of six, in the following set of six he does score. So he's playing some good footy, but we can't necessarily rely on him week in and week out to be that guy who stands up and stands out. And the Tom Fleglers, the Paddy Carrigans are the guys that are there, and they'll be chomping at his heels to make sure that they can play just as well as he does.
Yeah, it certainly puts a lot of pressure on the rotation policy of
Yeah.
having to be able to move the players around. Sometimes it takes a little while to get used to that of who is the best starter, who comes on off the bench and is able to produce their best performances from the bench, who is the best person to leave on there for as long as possible. A lot of the guys seem to be quite different in that, and it does take quite a considerable amount of time to be able to work out what works best for who.
And one young forward in their stocks is young Xavier Williamson. We've seen him the past few weeks. Unfortunately, he did his ACL, so he'll be out for the rest of the season. But, boys, what have you made out of him? Scored a good try against the Knights. He's been pretty effective.
Yeah, Adam, I like to, put a word to him as gunner. He's going to be better each and every week. He seems to get more confidence on board. Watching him at training so often as we do, we get to be able to see, there is something there in this kid. You know he's going to produce bigger and better things at every opportunity. So I think the only way to get it is to provide chance for him, to give him that opportunity. And I think there's. We all know what the answer to the question will be. It's just how long we're going to have to wait, and are injuries going to be any hurdle whatsoever?
Yeah, we lost one X factor in Xavier Coates.
Yeah.
And we pick up another one in Xavier Willison. So I thought he's been absolutely brilliant. I think he's improved over every game that he's played. And he hasn't looked out of place. I think that's the biggest thing, especially coming in as a young forward. You do have to learn a few lessons out there in the middle of the field, and I think his post-contact meters have been great. I don't think he's been lacking in fitness. So I think only bigger and better things to come for him.
And this week, a big test for the Broncos defenders, Sammy, up against Reece Walsh, one of the most electric players in the game. How do you limit his impact?
I reckon he should just have a weekend off. He's been playing some great footy. Mate, just kick the feet up, relax on the Gold Coast, work on your tan, and just play the next week. It's all good. But he is a player that I'm sure that the boys will be watching a fair bit in their team meetings this week, because a Sunday afternoon game at Suncorp Stadium, there's no better place to be and no better time that you want to be playing. So, they are going to have their homework done and tick every box before they go out there, especially against a player like Walshy.
Definitely the Broncos on the improve. The Cowboys, not so much. They were...
Are you all right? Are you okay, mate?
They were all kinds of awful against the West Tigers. I turned that game off with 20 minutes to go. Luckily, they scored a couple of cheap tries at the end to reduce the margin a bit. But, your thoughts on the Cowboys? They're pathetic at the moment.
You and I did not like the Cowboys' performance at all. They were pretty ordinary. Yeah, I'll use a different word, but they weren't far off pathetic for that game, according to the coach, who tried to inspire them at the end of the game by saying that they let themselves down and their fans, but to keep their chins up. A little bit hard. It just didn't appear as though their game plan was being put into effect at all.
It seemed like they didn't have a game plan.
Exactly. You and I have spoken about it a couple of times, and they just appeared confused. The thought process of, was it going to be the halfback that came up with the game plan, or the 5'8", the next receiver? And it didn't appear as though that they were any the wiser in coming up with that. Surely you've got to, in first grade football, have a standard game plan which you stick to. If it doesn't work, we'll try and alter it to a second and then perhaps a third. If that doesn't work, then you try and turn the opposition around as often as possible to make life uncomfortable for them coming away from their line. But no matter what the Cowboys put into play, it seemed that there was total confusion and an inability to put that into effect.
Yeah, it wasn't a great game, to be honest. And, I thought this was a game the Cowboys could have definitely won, because the Tigers have not been that crash hot over the last few weeks. And, even to the point, I earmarked this one as a win for the Cowboys. So they definitely did let themselves down in this game. They've got a few games to go to really build into next year. And I think there's a few players within this Cowboys team that will be playing for spots next year. So if I was them, I would definitely be doing everything I could to impress the coach and the coaching staff, and try to repay those fans up there in Townsville who back them no matter what.
And Adam, the strange part was, when they looked out of it at the end, they come back to put some pressure on. I thought,
play the game like that, not just the last 10 minutes.
Exactly, and it looked like they were gonna come back, and it inspired everybody that was watching it. But you just had to ask yourself the question, why the hell did that take so long to put into effect?
Yeah.
And it obviously created more distress and discomfort for the coach. You could see the blood pressure going through the roof there. But it was just confusing as to why it took so long to gain some sort of control over the opposition.
How do you change their lack of confidence? Because it seems like they're playing with a lack of confidence, especially Tom Dearden in the halves. I know you like him, but he seems down on confidence.
Yeah.
The whole team's down on confidence. How do you fix that?
Yeah, well, show me a team that doesn't have a good playmaker in the halves, and I'll show you a team that's not going to place a lot of effect on grabbing the grand final win. You need somebody in the halves, in the 6 or 7 jersey, and just as importantly, you need a very good dummy half that's able to get his team on the front foot. I realise, we're making it sound easy, but show me a team that's got, top place on the ladder at the moment that doesn't have those playmakers.
Yeah.
They're all there, so it's just very confusing as to why it took so long to go into operation the other night. And when they did, they looked terrific.
Yeah.
Looked like they had it. They knew what they were doing. They were well aware of the game plan that they were putting in operation, and the support players around them were able to get there as well. So just fairly distressing for the coach and supporters.
Yeah, I think for me it's going back to the simple things for them. And if that's 5 things going into a game, and whether that's let's complete our sets at a high level, let's make sure we get to our kick and have a full line of kick chase. When we get our opportunities, let's be happy with it. A repeat set. Just 5 simple things going into a game, which you can mark yourself on.
Yep.
And those 5 things going into a game, and then if you get the chance and opportunity at the end of the game to be a little bit flashy and have a little bit of fun, which it looked like the Cowboys were doing at the end of the game, that's your bonus, because you've already got yourself into a position where we've been competitive throughout this game. We've got to try here, we've got to try there. We may be losing on the score, but we have a bit of fun at the end, and we end up winning the game. So,
I think it's just as important to display patience.
Yeah.
If it's not working, well, give some credit to the opposition. Their defence that they're putting into place is effectual. That they're able to stop you from doing, but don't panic and start coming up with frustrating situations where you turn the ball over. Simply be prepared to go through your tackle count, get to the 5th tackle, kick to the corners, box the wingers in, make it as difficult as possible for they or the fullback to make some territory, and not try and win the game in the early stages. Yeah. Show something and try and frustrate them as much as possible. Yeah. If you don't do anything by being able to build to your points tally on the board, at least you're building your own confidence and self-belief.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's end on a high or a positive for the Cowboys. The debutants, Jeremiah Nane and Gritham Neem, they combined to set up one of the Cowboys' tries. That's one positive, a step to the future. That was a pretty cool try they scored, Sammy.
Yeah, and it's a chance at opportunity in these last few games to maybe blood a few goals like that, give them a chance at opportunity to play a little bit of first grade. Then you get to see them in the deep end, in the big boy pool, and see how they play. So, absolutely fantastic to see. I love watching young guys come through and fulfil their dream and, play first grade footy and, give them a chance now. While, it's sad to say the Cowboys aren't really playing for much at the moment. So, let these guys have a go and see what they can produce, because they can produce some brilliance. Yeah.
Well, they were experiencing frustration. Their teammates were on the field, but when they came into play, they didn't look like it had got to them.
Yeah.
They weren't reacting in the worst possible way. They were coming up with something creative that was going to, use that term again, create doubt in the mind of the defender.
Yeah.
Always try and come up with something. If it doesn't work, well then fine. Just keep trying it. Try something else. But it was a real positive for them.
And another exciting player to watch further south of the Gold Coast Titans, Corey Thompson. He's kind of a weird type of smaller winger in the modern day NRL, but he loves getting in doing the tough stuff, scoring crucial tries. How important is that, Sammy, to have a winger who can potentially do something out of nothing with all those traits?
He's one of my favourite players at the Gold Coast Titans, and I think there's a lot of Brian To'o about him and the way he plays, the way he carries the ball out of trouble. I can remember watching him just recently down there. He made a big break. I think he did 10 left foot steps, and it was the same left foot every time. And as a defence, looking at him going, it's the same left foot, just tackle him, someone.
Yeah.
But, I think he really sets off well. He's got a fairly good leap on him for a shorter guy as well. And as a winger, you just want a winger that you give him an 80% chance of scoring a try and he'll score it most of the time. So that's what I love about him. He's just a great player, and I think the Titans' sets would be lost without him starting them.
Valuable, like Mick Hancock and Willie Kahn. They just worked away and just came up with it. They weren't the biggest wingers in the world. They were good-sized guys that looked after themselves. But to be able to rely on somebody to come up with a play like that, they are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about wingers, is you can have a winger like a Tupou at the Roosters, who's tall, lanky, can jump over people. You can have a Brian To'o, who's at the Panthers, who will take 1,000 hit-ups in a game. And Corey Thompson's another one of those versatile wingers, and that's why we don't like to give wingers too much credit, but when they score tries and do great things, they're your best friends. But when they don't, it's a roller coaster being out there.
And he's consistent.
He is very consistent.
Does it week in, week out, and teammates love to have that on board.
Yeah.
And the big problem for the Titans, if they're going to make the finals, they still need to improve their defence. They were ripped to shreds by the Rabbitohs, 36 points. I think they conceded. What lessons can they take out of that one?
I think I said it 1,000 times in our show last week, is that the Titans need to improve their defence, and it wasn't improved against the Rabbitohs. Yes, the Rabbitohs have a fantastic attacking team, probably one of the best and most entertaining ones that I like watching at the moment. They're probably up there with the Sea Eagles in the way that they attack. But the Titans have their hands full again. Thursday night they take on the Melbourne Storm, who's another great attacking team. So this is the benchmark. If you want to see where you are at as a team defensively, we all know they can attack. They've got some brilliant attacking players within their team, but it's their defence that's let them down throughout this whole season. So a chance on Thursday night against the Storm to, hey, let's settle him at, if the Storm score 18 points, we know that we can score 22. Let's start with that.
Well, the one thing I think we can guarantee that will be there will be respect for the opposition.
Yeah.
They know that they're going to have to go out there and be at their best throughout the course of that game. Otherwise, the scoreboard attendant is going to be on double time and a half.
Yeah.
They'll be continually chalking up more points. But in a funny way, sometimes your best performances of the year are when you play the top teams in the competition.
Yeah.
You know that you've got to produce your best, and I suspect that'll be the case. The coach will be working overtime in the build-up to this one to make sure that they are ready. And while it's easier said than done, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a beauty.
Yeah, well, if I'm the Titans, all I'm doing is I'm talking about how good the Melbourne Storm are. I'm getting out there in the media and I'm talking about, the Melbourne Storm are going to equal this record or break the record of
equal 19.
Equal 19 wins in a row. I'd be pumping their tyres up so much, but knowing that behind the scenes I'm preparing for the toughest game of the year and I'm getting my team ready. So that's what I'd be doing. I'd be putting it all on them.
And teasing them, saying, do you want to be in the record books?
Yeah.
This is you're the team who the Melbourne Storm chalked up the record against. They may have gone on with it with a few more wins, but you were the team that they came into play. So.
But what about this? 18 wins in a row for the Melbourne Storm. The only two teams that have come within 6 points of them during that 18 run, the Titans and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So the talent's there. If you can push the Melbourne Storm, you can win games of footy.
Yeah, well, the Cowboys played them only just recently, and I thought defensively they were brilliant against them. So if I was Holbrook down the Gold Coast, I'd be watching that tape, and the Cowboys' line speed was brilliant. And the Melbourne Storm have come out and they said that they haven't been brilliant over the last probably three weeks of playing footy. Yeah, they've got through and won games somewhat convincingly, but they've marked themselves pretty hard. But I would definitely be watching that game that the Cowboys played the Melbourne Storm up in Townsville. I thought they played great against them, and that's how you defend against the Storm.
And two of their best players, Jerome Hughes and Dale Finucane, won't play that game due to HIA suffered in that win over the Raiders. So they are vulnerable there, and you'll catch that game live and free on Channel 9. Big weekend of football. Thursday night it kicks off on the Gold Coast Seabus Super Stadium. The Titans against the Storm. Then Sunday afternoon it wraps up here in Queensland. A Sunday Arvo game that Sammy used to love, the Warriors and the Broncos. So stay tuned to Wide World of Sports.